Welcome to the Guide to Movies podcast with Joe and Sean. I am Joe. He is Sean. How is Sean doing today?
Sean is in his element. I think I watched 4 black and white movies yesterday, and I do not show signs of stopping. I am going hard in this vacation and really enjoying myself.
Well, hey, you're definitely tackling some of those movies that are on the list that are probably older ones that you haven't gotten to.
It's a bucket list for me, which I will definitely talk about later on.
Is this really just like distraction from making your like final list of top movies for 2020?
It has been quite a nightmare to make my final lists for top 2020. I've took it upon myself to make several different lists, and each one of them is just very, very difficult to narrow down. So I'm putting way more work on myself than I have to, which is always great.
I'm in the same boat there, and as I'm like putting movies in there, I just keep thinking like, who's going to argue with me, and who's going to be like, "Well, you did this, you did that, blah 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 blah," and then I'm going to get pissed off and be like, "I'm not doing this anymore." So that's just a preview of the next few days.
For me, it's I have a couple of beers, and then I just look at the list and I say, I don't like this one anymore. And then I just, go out. And then, that does help whittle it around. Then, I wake up the next morning and I'm like, oh, God,
Yeah.
this is not good.
Last year, I remember someone like some Poindexter was like, well, I don't understand. You rated that one a 4 and this one a 5, yet the 4 is ahead of the 5. And I'm like, oh, God, it's my list of top 20 films. It doesn't mean like, completely organized from what's the, what I graded as a 5 or a 4 or whatever. It's level of enjoyability. It's rewatchability. It's what I think, is a solid film.
Ugh. And also things do change quite a bit. I mean, I could think about my list of the top of the decade last year, and I think right after I posted it, I already wanted to change 3 different movies off of it. And so I think something like that, it's just very difficult. It's the mood you're in at that time. So it's just sort of a good like snapshot of the moment of how we've enjoyed film.
It definitely is. And our friend from Unlimited Reviews, Haley, is in the chat. She says spontaneous better be high on those lists. I can share with you that it actually is pretty high on my list. So that should be fun.
That'll be one of the ones where I think when I was drinking, I took that one off. However, if it's on anyone's number one for anyone's list, I fully appreciate, understand, and support you because that movie is awesome.
There you go. Are you doing a top 10 or a top 20 or a top 5 or what?
For some reason, I try to do the top 10 and it ends up being a top 15 every single time.
That's what I did last year. I was like, I can't make these decisions.
And it's like, could you make those last 5 honorable mentions? No, top 15.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat there. I did the same exact thing. But hey, this is episode 28. That's kind of wild, and this is our last episode of the year, so we're calling it our year in review, as well as the best of 2020 episodes. So we're going to touch on some, exciting news from this week, kind of, and then we're also going to dive into talking about sort of our tops and bottoms of the year, and we'll see exactly where we land on that stuff. I'm saying we'll see, but I'm looking at the list that we populated already. So it'll be a surprise for everyone listening or watching.
Probably.
So, hey, let's start off with some news. And I think we need to talk about Wonder Woman 1984, which debuted on HBO Max. I had touched on it last week because I had watched it before it came out. And it was still fresh in my mind that day. And I did not care for it. I know that you watched it when it was released. What were your thoughts?
Unfortunately, I was really excited to disagree with you, and we were going to fight about this. But unfortunately, I also did not like it. I felt that the action scenes were few and far between. I think that the actual rules of the villain were really, really tough to get around. Like, you're supposed to hold them to make a wish, but then you only have to make a wish on TV, and
through particles.
The particles don't touch you. I get, this is how like the 80s understood TV, I guess. I don't know.
I kept thinking about Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, like the kid in the little thing.
That actually is exactly what they were thinking it was at that point. And they it was a little bit tricky to, sort of grasp hold of that. I really wish it could have been better. I was rooting for this movie. I really wanted it to do well. The action, which I didn't mind, because over CGI, in my opinion, fine. We're watching fucking cartoons anyway.
Right.
Like I'm not gonna go get picky about that. Make it entertaining, make it fun. They made it entertaining and fun, but they made each action moment 2 minutes, which were there only like 3 or 4 action moments, and the rest of the goddamn thing of the 2.5-hour movie was nothing. And it just really just felt lacking, unfortunately.
I keep saying this, but I feel like if you were to skip this movie, you wouldn't have missed anything in terms of character development or anything worthwhile that happens to impact the future of these characters. It was such a rehash of the love story from the first one. A little bit of a spoiler. Well, hey, it's been out. So if you haven't seen it, well, I don't know. Fast forward. Well, I'll put it in the comments or in the notes for the episode, so when it's safe to listen again. But I'm a huge DC guy, as you know, and I was looking forward to this because I love the first one. But I just feel like they destroyed everything that they set up in the first. And by that I mean, she was an independent, strong superwoman, superhero, established herself, showed that of course she's loving and has all that, but was powerful enough to end the threat of Ares in the first one. In this one, she just was totally okay with him taking over the body of someone else and, not really caring what happened to that dude. So that's a little morally, I don't know, moral conundrum there. But the other thing is, and I said this to the guys on the Chumpcast the other day, if I had to hear Pedro Pascal say, "Do you wish it?" one more goddamn time, I was going to lose my mind because it's so childish. It was so dumb, and he deserved better. Kristen Wiig, I loved in it, mainly because I don't love that character and what they did to her, because I felt like it was very like Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer-ish. But Kristen Wiig played it really well, and I was excited to see her in an action film like this. I think it's really going to open up some more doors for her because she's a good actress.
Yeah, the villains were just very well performed, but very underwritten, both of them. I liked Wig in this. I liked her transformation. She was having a good time. Pascal he was a little bit of a nut, but that's what he was like a huckster and stuff. And so he was hamming it up, and I sort of enjoyed that aspect of it. But when it comes really down to it, they were just, both of them deserved, like you just said, deserved better, really.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. So we did get some more news after Wonder Woman 1984 came out on Christmas Day. We found out that there will be a third Wonder Woman. I don't know if that was ever a question, but I guess the confirmation is that it's being fast-tracked, and Patty Jenkins is attached to write and direct once again. So they make a comment in the release that this was always a planned trilogy. However, Patty Jenkins went on to say in another interview that she has ideas for 2 more Wonder Woman stories. So who knows what's going to happen there. And then, of course, little spoiler. So, close your ears. It's going to take 20 seconds to discuss this. So here's your warning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kristen Wiig's likely going to be back as Cheetah. She kind of said it in a chat online. She was like, "Well, I don't know. Wink, wink, wink." So I'm happy to see her again. I just hope that they do something better with the story.
Yeah, this was one where you just realized that DC was sort of hailing to the almighty dollar, and that's fine. That's that's what you're gonna do. I understand the business decision. It's popular. It worked out. It seems that it's a little bit difficult because Wonder Woman succeeded in a vacuum. People didn't have to go to the theaters on Christmas night. People just had to fire up their TVs. Most of them had the subscription or just got the subscription, and so they didn't have to go pay for a ticket. And yes, Wonder Woman 1984 did very well on HBO Max. Will that translate to good theater purchases? And also now there's a lot of disgruntled fans, and so I hope that they can possibly learn their lessons. I hope Jenkins can as well. I think I'm right about this, that Jenkins wrote the second one but didn't write the first one. I don't know if that's correct.
I believe so. I'll double check that while you're chatting,
and I'll keep going. Yeah, and so the issue there is hey, she can write other stories. She can go for it with Wonder Woman. I just hope she pays close attention to what's going on, because that's what just worries me about that situation. In terms of Wig coming back, sure, because of obviously the spoilers there, but I think that was more of just, Kristen Wiig having fun in an interview. Who knows? That could be true. That might not be true. They may be like
that
going
wasn't
in
Kristen
a whole
Wiig.
different direction.
That was Patty Jenkins.
Oh, okay. I was like,
During
Wiig would mess around, but I don't know, Patty. Okay.
Yeah, it was during a watch along on of Wonder Woman 1984 that they were tweeting during. The answer to your question about the first film is the screenplay was by Alan Heinberg, and the story was credited to Heinberg, Jason Fuchs, Fuchs.
Fuchs. Yo,
and,
my goodness.
Hey, he probably fucks too. And Zack Snyder had a story credit as well in there. I don't know if Snyder had a story credit with Wonder Woman 1984. I know he was a producer on it. No, it looks like Jeff Johns had the story. Patty Jenkins and Jeff Johns, and she apparently also has worked with him on outlining the next story for the third one. So,
I mean, and it could be fine. It could. I would like them to take it into a very, very different direction. Like, don't even do like we were joking around about times on how it could be 2084 or 2184. Don't even do that. Like, let's just like have it be like sort of like amongst Justice League and like, oh man, I would rather like, just like the DC had to do when it started to like, slide down, is maybe just do some stuff that's different in different places and keep it simple. Just please keep it simple. You tried to go complicated here and it went very awry.
Well, and I think that's why I was laughing earlier when you said hopefully they learned their lesson. I'm like, do you know what studio you're working with here? Like, they don't learn lessons. So I can believe. I did see something today that they want to. It's going to be more contemporary, which is good. But I don't know. They could have done much better with this film. They went completely opposite direction. I thought they would. But speaking of DC, we did get some more news about the future of the DC film slate, where DC Films president Walter Hamada was sitting down with the New York Times, as one does. Didn't know that was like the New York Times is like, let's get DC Films president.
Not a lot else going on.
Yeah. This is starting in 2022. DC plans to release 4 theatrical films a year, and these will be major, big budget, like Wonder Woman's, Aquaman's, those types, Batman. And then they're planning on sending 2 lower budget or 2, I forget how they put it. Well, I do know how they put it, but I'm going to touch on that in a second. But 2 lower level films on to HBO Max, in addition to series. So there was a comment that they're starting to look at like every film that they produce, is there a spin-off series that they can do, which worries me that they're like, is there something there, like trying to make it instead of an idea that just kind of comes out of James Gunn's mind or something. So that's what's happening with the Peacemaker series that we're getting. They also commented that the multiverse is definitely in full swing. We'll have the 2 Batmans going. So the quote was, boiled down, it means that some characters, Wonder Woman, for instance, will continue their adventures on Earth 1, while new incarnations, Robert Pattinson as the Batman, will populate Earth 2, with 2022's The Flash linking the 2. So basically they're just kind of doing those one-offs. They're shooting stuff out there. They're going with what works. And finally, the last comment. This quote is crazy. I was talking to Rachel Reviews about this on Twitter last night because it's just so funny. But they said that Zack Snyder's upcoming Justice League is, quote unquote, a storytelling cul-de-sac, a street that leads nowhere. Which I also think is bullshit. I don't think that's true. I think they're just waiting to see how it does to be like, oh yeah, keep going. Because it's DC we're talking about. They don't have a plan. So there you go.
So I'm going to work backwards from what you were saying there and talk first backwards like I would if I entered a cul-de-sac. And I'm just going to sort of say, like, the storytelling cul-de-sac, this is the movie with all of the DC characters, or excuse me, the prominent DC characters. And you're saying that's the storytelling cul-de-sac that we're just like, okay, yep, that happens. And then we're just going to move it back. I can't quite fathom how that's, how do I say it? Okay. Or a good call, or if that's going to just make any sense. I mean, they're pouring some money into this thing. you'd think that maybe like you would use this to further plan the movies.
I mean, but think about it, right? Like the way that they just waited to announce Wonder Woman 3, and whether like I do not believe that project came together in the 24 hours after Christmas, right? That was set. So think about it, a week prior to that, you had Patty Jenkins being like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm going to do it," and blah blah blah, and throwing all that crap out there. There's been rumors left and right that they are going to continue on with Zack Snyder's Justice League, and allow that to play out on HBO Max. And it would probably be smart if it makes money. So I think what they're doing is like, hey, here's an idea that we have out there to continue, but let's see how it does first.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I also look at the HBO Max versus theater lineup, and I just think that's going to be like sort of incredibly insulting isn't the right word, but it's going to be a little bit insulting, and it's going to be a bad message for some of these movies of like, well, this movie it's on HBO Max, so it's probably going to be less, or this movie's in theaters, so it's probably going to be better. I won't agree with that. I mean, let's face it, the rise of streaming was occurring a few years before the pandemic. And so, the rise of streaming is continuing now. And so good quality stuff is also on streaming instead of the theater. Now, I don't know if they're saying that, it's the good quality stuff that will go to the theater or the stuff that make more money will go to the theater. But like anything like that, that's going to be, how I think it goes. I don't know about that accent, by the way. We might have to cut that out.
It was a special accent. I think it was a little bit nerdy. We'll go with that. But
yeah, we'll go with that.
here's the thing. The part that got me about this announcement was that I saw two examples given as films that would head to HBO Max, and the two were Batgirl and Static Shock. So a female-fronted superhero movie and a black male-fronted superhero movie. And they also said that the more risky projects would go there. So if you're going to state that diverse initiatives in film are risky and you're not going to give them theatrical release, then you're shooting yourself in the foot and you're doing a disservice to those characters.
I didn't even realize that. And maybe because I forgot what Static Shock was. And I guess I should read between the lines on Batgirl. But for those two, it's just, yeah, that's true. They're looking to say like, oh, the diversity will go to HBO Max and, a ton of people will watch it. But if a ton of people don't, which by the way, I don't think will happen, it gets a little bit tricky and it sends a terrible message. And, I start from my word of insulting from the beginning. Now I really mean it. It is pretty insulting what they're doing. And I think that that's a very, very tricky, web to weave.
Yeah, it's very frustrating to me. I got to be honest. When I read that, I was not happy with it. And I hope that it was just a poor use of words by the New York Times writer, because it wasn't in quotations. But I mean, with those two examples, it does kind of, I don't know, it leads me to believe that that's what they're thinking. Who knows? DC continues to come out with a different plan every 6 months. So, thank God these guys aren't leading the pandemic response. All right. So the next story, which Sean, I'm going to turn this over to you in a second. But basically, Lee Isaac Chung's Minari, which is getting a ton of awards buzz, and it's about an immigrant Korean family living in America, is heading to the Best Foreign Film category at the Golden Globes instead of the Best Motion Picture. You are our, fantastic awards guy here. Can you talk about this a little bit?
So basically what happened here is we have the Golden Globes, and the Golden Globes have a foreign language category, much like the Oscars used to have. And I say used to, and I'll expand on that a little bit more. But the foreign language category requires that over 50% of the film has to be in a foreign language. Now, this is the Hollywood Foreign Press Association that is the Golden Globes. So if we can talk about what a foreign language means to them, obviously it means not American or not English. Already we're getting into very muddy water. You know what? Saying not American almost fits. Like just based on how this category goes. But Minari is, I think someone, calculated it, and they said it's like 52%, I believe, pardon me, Korean. Yes, that's why I wanted to look once more. 52% Korean. So it's like, imagine being the person that literally has to go through each thing of dialogue and go through it. There was an argument in 2009 over Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards on whether that should be a foreign film or not. And you know what? Some could argue that it could be. I'm not going to do the percentages, but you could argue that. Now, obviously, it is not. Here's what the Oscars did to rectify this situation. And the Oscars went with changing from foreign film to international film. That way, someone from each country, which was it anyway the case, could submit a international feature film, and that would be the way it could be done. Now, this could get very interesting when Canada submits a film, and maybe it's not in a language that we don't know. I don't exactly know those off the top of my head, the Oscar rules there. Could America submit a international film? There's a possibility, but I don't think that they qualify based on the Oscars being in America. Now, Golden Globes are, 18 steps behind, and then they consistently go a step backwards just to make up for that. One of their big issues is their best foreign language film. If they're in that category, they cannot be in Best Picture. That is the main reason, and that's why things were sent haywire last year when Parasite didn't win Best Picture, because Parasite couldn't get nominated for Best Picture because it was in Best Foreign Language Film. That's where Golden Globes. Yeah, yeah, for the Golden Globes. And so that created a huge issue. Now, why can a foreign film not be nominated for Best Picture as well in the Golden Globes? Because the Golden Globes say so, and that's pretty much the only reason. And that's a simple rule that they could change easily, and it probably wouldn't hurt anything that much. And so, that's part of the problems there. Golden Globes have always been a problem. I think on the last podcast, I completely shat on the Golden Globes. I think they're ridiculous now. They're like they used to be a good predictor of the Oscars. Now they are very, very close to not even predicting what the Oscars could be, except for a couple of categories that are obvious. Honestly, that's where this one stands. It'll be interesting. And also, the big thing to remember here is this is Minari is an American film. It is from America. It's produced in America. It's filmed in America. I think literally the setting is in America.
Yeah, Colorado, I think.
Yeah, and so the issue we might have here is why in the world is this being considered a foreign language film for that reason? And when we go to the Oscars, this can't be submitted as an international film because this is from America. So that is just some of the the issues with the Globes. On the other hand, with this, it is more than half of it is in a quote unquote foreign language. And so I could argue that this could be a foreign language film. I think when more than half of something is in a foreign language, I don't consider that a foreign language film. I consider it like 100% where I'm like, hey, I can't even look up or something like that. And, then we also have the big time ask of what is a foreign language? Because if people are watching this in Korea, this isn't a foreign language. It is kind of like, the fact that we call people of color minorities when, they are a larger portion of America. And so it's some of the backwards thinking that, isn't horrifically racist or anything like that, but it's just a little bit too ignorant and a little bit too stagnant for the times.
It reminds me of the cheesesteak place in Philadelphia. I think it was Geno's, where they had a sign if you can't speak English or something like that, welcome to America, now speak English. But that's the same type of thing that I go to right away with Golden Globes here. Basically what they're saying is, if you're speaking a different language for the majority of a film, whether or not you are made here in America or not, you're a foreign film. And that's just kind of ridiculous to me, especially given, the number of languages that we have in this country. And it drives me insane. That really pissed me off. But Sean, you're going to be starting something new next week on GuyAtTheMovies.com. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I am taking on an endeavor at GuyAtTheMovies.com, which I'm very worried about doing. But every week, I'm going to be cluing you all into, just what's going to be going on in the Oscar race. Now, this is going to be the first week of January where I start this, and the Oscars don't happen until April. So I'm gonna a lot of the columns might look a little bit the same, but one of the things I love to do is I love to parcel out awards. There's people that always just say, "Oh, the Oscars are stupid." I'm like, yeah, I friggin' agree, man. Like, let's talk about it. Let's go through it. Like, let's have some fun with this. Let's see, like, why is this award there? Like, why is that award there? Why is this person the more popular choice? And I'm just gonna sort of talk about the a little bit of the politics behind it, a little bit, going on. So I'm very excited for it. I'm very nervous about the amount of content I'll be able to put out, but I want to thank you, Joe, for this lovely opportunity at guyatthemovies.com.
I think it'll be fun. I mean, as we get closer, we'll do our own ballots and or brackets, I should say, and ballots. I guess they're not brackets. Thinking like college basketball. So we'll get them going, and maybe we'll get some more involvement from the audience and be able to have some good discussions about what we're expecting. And if you look at some of the websites and the betting on the Oscars, it's constantly shifting. Which is pretty fascinating. And we still have more films to come out. Excuse me. So, go ahead.
I mean, it is just wonderful that, like, you could say you could predict what's going to happen with the Oscars, but literally last year, Parasite won the Best Picture Oscar, a foreign language film or international film. And every single person that was like, it's like, there's no way. They'll give him Best Director, but there's just absolutely no way this will happen until the night. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, everyone in that room loves Parasite, so they probably voted for Parasite. And then that's where it got even more fun.
I think I told this story before, but I was at a watch party last year with my buddy, like a black tie thing, and when I was surrounded by older white people, and when Parasite won Best Picture, it was like a hush went across the room. My buddy and I were in the back, like, yes. Like all the young people were pumped for it, and all the older people were like, how can this happen? So I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen this year? I have some films that I'm like gung ho about seeing get recognized, but
yeah,
I don't know. There's still some that I haven't seen that I know we're going to be in the front of the pack there. So I've got some work to do up before April 24th.
Hey, let's go. Come on.
Or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I will probably, for a preview of my first column, be talking about a lot of the Critics Awards have been announced. And, high up there is like First Cow is. So I don't know if that's going to be a big time Best Picture winner. But
but it's funny. I've seen that on a lot of people's end of year lists. And I still haven't seen it. Oh, God. All right. Well, let's dive into a little bit more of our conversation around the year in review and what a year this has been for film. So we talked about doing resolutions, or, if you had to give this year a tagline for film, like what would it be? So I'll just start with, my big focus this year. And when I think back on 2020, it was really the year of streaming services. Like you said earlier, we had streamers really popping up. Years ago, we had Netflix and then Hulu, and then slowly we started getting Amazon Prime Video, and then you get some of the other smaller ones. We have HBO Max now. We have Peacock that popped up, all that stuff. But what we saw was, really, I guess, starting the year prior, maybe it was a little before that, actually, thinking about Roma way back when, we saw some big films going to streaming. And this year we saw that they played a prominent role in being able to deliver content and deliver films that were going to hit theaters into people's living rooms, so that some of these films got out and studios weren't cannibalizing themselves next year and trying to release all the films so close to one another. So it really, for me, is the year of streaming services, because I think I've watched more content either on streaming or even VOD than I ever have in the past. And that's, of course, because of the pandemic and where we're at in society, and with theaters being largely shut down. But there's been discussions, and I think we talked about it on another podcast I was on the other day, that like, what streaming service would you get rid of? And I don't know that I would get rid of one right now. There's a few that I watch more than others, but I love the diverse content that we're getting through the different streaming channels.
That's a tricky question, because to get rid of one of my streaming services, Apple TV was the one that came to mind, but no, because that gave me Boys State, which is one of my top films. That gave me Wolf Walkers, which is another one of my top films. And then that's it. But
But you also, I mean, you've talked about Ted Lasso, right?
Oh, Ted Lasso. I love Ted Lasso.
Yeah, so
But
there's good quality stuff there.
it really is, yeah. So there's still stuff there that can really do well, and I think Apple TV is probably of them all. I don't want to get rid of it, but they're the ones that need to, like, I don't know, start grabbing a couple more films, buddies. Like you guys are really low on the totem pole.
Yeah, they're kind of like slow to get started because I think about now the deals that they have with like Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio's company, and I think there's going to be a lot coming down the road. But I don't know. There's definitely some consistency issues when it comes to the offerings on different streaming services, but I don't know. How about you, Sean? What's this year in film mean for you?
So this was a year where when I knew that a lot of films, like once the pandemic hit, a lot of films just like already like immediately, like Fast and Furious 9 was like, all right, peace out next summer. Like I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is kind of serious. And so, and I knew that the theaters were closing. I knew I wasn't going to be in a theater for a very long time. And so I just decided to, mooch off of my buddy's Criterion account and then several other different places and just watch every single classic movie that I've been ashamed I've never seen. And that's a lot. And so, my tagline is movie bucket list. And that is because there is a ton of movies that, like, you call yourself a film fan and you've never seen this. The ones that come across right off the bat are Alien and Aliens. I've never seen them until this year. And so, I'm very glad I saw them. Then there's ones just I never heard of. Criterion has the weirdest movies of all time. And I just kept on going deeper and deeper into those. And it just sort of like put some context to me as a film fan. I watched Treasure of the Sierra Madre after watching Da 5 Bloods, not realizing that Da 5 Bloods is a remake of Treasure of the Sierra Madre. It was really cool to see kind of both of those aspects of it. And I really liked seeing like how that worked. So for me, it was my own little movie journey was going back to the classics, going back to just see all these different movies that either I need to revisit and, show Sam, or just myself want to just like, I've never seen this before and I really need to see this movie. And I'm still doing it now because apparently there's an infinite amount of movies in the world and I'm just going to keep on going. Like I did 4 yesterday and I showed no sign of stopping.
Well, and think about horror too. You really started diving into horror this year.
This was a huge year for me in horror. I mean, between like
this was a big year for me.
It was the summer of Phillips and horror. I truly really turned on to horror. I realized there's not much to be scared of except for His House. That is the scariest thing that's ever occurred in the world. And I just really loved a lot of the new horror. I loved a lot of the old horror. I literally watched all the Scream movies thanks to Joe this year. And that was a huge, momentous, and absolutely fun time. So just in general, great stuff.
I'm with you there. I'm totally with you there. I think, looking at, a lot of the ones that I missed this year and a lot of the ones that I continue to add on to my, I need to watch list. So, thinking about I'm trying to think of some good examples, but films I missed last year, right? I have a list of films that I want to watch from 2019 that I still did not get to because I was watching films from 2020. So now I'm adding films from 2020 to my list from 2019, and it's just hell. This is just hell, right? But no, I'm excited to see to sit down and go through my letterbox and kind of take a look at everything that I did watch this year that I even forget about because again, this is the longest year on in recorded time. So we'll see. We need to compare bucket lists at some point.
I don't actually have a full blown list. It's just I go through the streamer and I'm like, that's a movie of a title I recognize that someone says you have to see, and then I just click on all those and it creates a just chaos.
You're like, I'll watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so that brings us to the most important part and the most official thing we're ever going to do on this podcast. Our best of awards. Okay. Now, I stressed over this. Haley, stick around. I know it's late there, but you'll like some of the answers coming up. So we're going to talk about 4 categories: movie of the year, performance of the year, disappointment of the year, and most anticipated of 2021. Let's kick it off with movie of the year. We'll start big, right? We'll go big right away.
Right at the beginning.
I am going with 2 films because I couldn't decide. I'm currently on my letterbox. They sit number 1 and number 2. Pieces of a Woman, starring Vanessa Kirby, was phenomenal. I loved it. It was Marriage Story-ish in terms of how authentic it was and the emotions. I just absolutely love that film. It comes out tomorrow in limited theaters and then the next week on Netflix. What were you going to say, Sean?
Well, no, I was wondering. I was like, comes out tomorrow on Netflix, and I was so excited. But
next week. And then my other one that I couldn't decide between, we kind of alluded to this earlier, Spontaneous. Spontaneous was one of those films that actually Haley Unlimited Reviews messaged me and said, you need to watch this film because I really think you're going to like it. And I looked it up and found out that it was about teenagers spontaneously combusting and was like, what? But it was probably one of the best dark comedies / dramas / romantic, dark romantic comedy. Is that a thing? That I've ever seen, because they just used this, exploding thing to dive into the characters, and Catherine Langford, and I'm forgetting the guy's
Charlie
name.
Plummer.
Charlie Plummer. I thought they were phenomenal in it. It was just a very, very, very good movie. And because it's one of the big surprises from this year, it's up there very high. How about you, Sean?
I'm going to just just talk about Spontaneous a little bit more, because that broke every single rule of whatever genre it was trying to be, which it was like watching you just right now try to pick a genre was adorable, because like this movie doesn't, this movie is not a genre.
I was like, where's it going?
It's a romantic comedy, because at its most tender moments, you're terrified that one of them is going to explode. And then you say to yourself, oh, it's going to be okay. It really was something where, by the way, I didn't see the plot at all. And I just knew that there was this is a fun teen comedy. So when they're sitting in class in the first 2 minutes and I'm like, Sam, you'll like this too. And a kid explodes next to her. The two of us are it's really, really good. It truly is great. I just wanted to add that tag. I haven't seen Pieces of a Woman yet, which, I mean, could work for an alternate title of Spontaneous. But,
the other thing about Spontaneous is you're talking about the, not knowing when someone's going to explode. Sounds so stupid to talk about, but not knowing when someone's going to explode. And you, in your post of like the top 10 movie images or top 10 scenes, chose a very pivotal scene of that movie. And that's all I think about when I think of this movie, honestly.
It really is probably like the number one scene, because it's like I almost say that everybody watch Spontaneous. This one we won't even spoil on here. Now, what was I going to do? Oh yeah, so I saw your top 2 there, and so I assumed we could pick 2. So I'm going to pick 2 anyway. My number 1 is one I did not expect to be my number 1 at the beginning of the year, which is always like one of my most fascinating things. I love that, and that's Sound of Metal. It is about a drummer who is who immediately starts to go deaf, and he's a former addict, and he's sort of reckoning with all these issues. This is a very simple story outline. This is a very simple character analysis, and it's told in a very original setting using sound editing and sound mixing, both in just like absolutely monumental ways. This just relies on amazing performances from, I'm going to forget his name, Riz Ahmed, and I'm going to forget the name, Paul Lucy. Oh, that's not right. Something. Yeah. And it just relies on those two at the center, and it really is just one that just put a chill in me. Paul Raci. I knew it was with the CI. But both of them are absolutely phenomenal. This is truly just a wondrous film that was made. I'm recommending it to everybody, and it's simple. That's the one thing. My other one is not that simple, and this is Mank. And Mank is a complicated one on many fronts, because this is a cinephiles movie. This is for the people that think Citizen Kane is the greatest movie of all time, which I technically do believe it is. But it sort of comes out in the same vein as that movie, and that gets tricky, because is this movie just designed for me? And am I being selfish by putting that on my top? Yes, I am. Was this movie just like a making of Citizen Kane? No, this was a movie about the politics of Hollywood at that time, which is way more bold. So some of the people that were just the cinephiles that just wanted to see like cool Citizen Kane things weren't seeing that. Instead, they were seeing like, him like going through like talking about different like politics and, making campaign ads for different and like having to sell out for the different producers. And it was kind of wild on how just like this was what movie they decided to make. And I loved that. And it's set up perfectly. And it's set up in this narrative of a flashback, which goes back and forth. And just like, Citizen Kane will. And both of those are just like beautiful aspects of it. I expected to hate this movie, Meg. I expected to not like this. I was like, oh boy, I don't know about this one. I love Citizen Kane, but I don't know. This is kind of like a little bit over the top. And technically sound, this was truly amazing.
Yeah, and hey, that's why it's in all the awards conversations right now, and especially with David Fincher and the work that he does. Sound of Metal is a film that I want to give another shot at. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I thought it was a good film. I liked exactly what you said, what they did with sound. So I do want to check that out again.
I will say sometimes those good films just like hit me weird. Like, so it's just like, and I'm just like, oh, perfect. Like, I don't know what happens.
Remember when I saw Radioactive and I was like, I was so excited about that. And still, that's going to be on my top 20 list because I just really enjoyed that movie. And it's just weird how certain films hit you in a certain way.
Yeah.
I don't know. So next up on our list is Performance of the Year. And why don't you start off with your Performer of the Year and talk about that a little bit?
So my Performer of the Year is a very tragic one. And I had a lot to go with here first. I just wanted to sort of say Aubrey Plaza's on my list twice for Black Bear and Happiest Season for my list of performances. And so that was a very interesting thing that I just thought about. But I went with someone who is also who is not on my list twice, but who is on a lot of lists twice, including possibly the Oscars. And this is Chadwick Boseman. And we lost him. And, here's the difficult thing. I'm not putting him on there because of that. I know, but he is like truly like he gave an absolutely amazing performance in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Different from what he has usually done. And really expressing himself, really going deep in emotion, really like going in the highest amounts of energy. Then you have him also in Da 5 Bloods as a supporting character. In that, he was a little bit more invisible to me. He was a little bit more godlike. It was a little bit tricky with his performance there. He's being hailed for a Best Supporting Actor nom. I'm thinking, let's go for Ma Rainey's. Let's go for the Best Actor. Like, let's get him his Oscar that way. I really think this guy needs an Oscar this year. I would be bummed if it went to Da 5 Bloods. I don't think that's his best performance. I think Ma Rainey he put everything into that to give us something to live with forever. And it's true. It's truly like one of the best of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't disagree with you there. I think there's so many great performances, and unfortunately his last was one of his best, and just a great talent. So mine is, I'm going to sound like a broken record because I keep talking about the same movie, but Pieces of a Woman, Vanessa Kirby in the lead. So the film, just as a little background, is about a couple who has a baby during a home birth. The baby dies, and the midwife is blamed for issues and the ultimate death and complications. And the film is all about grief, and it's about Vanessa Kirby's character dealing with the aftermath of what happened and how her relationship with her partner changes, and her overbearing mom, played by Ellen Burstyn. And it's heart-wrenching. And I keep comparing it to Marriage Story, but I just think about those performances in Marriage Story and how visceral they were. And that is exactly how Vanessa Kirby's performance is. And if she is not near the top of the list in terms of awards, award contenders for Best Actress, I will be absolutely shocked. Absolutely shocked. So, yeah, that's mine. You need to watch that movie when it comes out. I was really blown away by it.
Wait to watch it.
Yeah. I hope I'm not talking it up too much, but it's one of those that I just absolutely love.
I've heard it's a difficult sit, so I'm a little bit nervous to watch it. But naturally, now that as you have given the premise, it's not exactly going to be great, or great sit. But
there's honestly some questionable. That's not the right way to put it. There are some uncomfortable interactions, and Ellen Burstyn is one of those. Like, she instigates a lot of it because she's just an overbearing mother who believes she knows exactly what should be done and stuff like that. And then, of course, like Shia LaBeouf, I guess that's the elephant in the room, is that there are some questionable scenes with him that, given some of the personal stuff that's happening, or let me say it this way, some of the stuff that's happening in his personal life and in his real life, it's unfortunate that the film is coming out at a time where that is front and center. But maybe it also will work for the conversation around abuse and things like that. It's tough. And I had someone say to me the other day, like, I'm not going to watch Pieces of a Woman for a while because of Shia LaBeouf. And I'm like, don't watch it for Shia LaBeouf. Watch it for the story and watch it for Vanessa Kirby's performance, because you're missing out if you don't.
Yeah, I mean, they're missing out on Vanessa Kirby's performance, which is getting a lot of awards chatter. Ellen Burstyn, who is getting a lot of awards chatter, and that just gets me extremely excited. I haven't seen her since like Requiem for a Dream, so I'm absolutely ready for some Ellen Burstyn again.
Our buddy Jaron from Jaron Talks Movies, or Jaron Talks, he and I were going back and forth about Pieces of a Woman last night for like a half hour, and we're like, and then, so it's a movie that I think. Rightfully so, is in a lot of conversations. Our next category is disappointment of the year, and there's movies in this conversation for all the wrong reasons. But mine, there's not much more to be said about this. It's Wonder Woman 1984. I was so pumped for that movie, and it was just a major letdown, and was not at all what I expected from the talents of Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins. If I had to throw another one in there, it's one that I just thought about during this pod, is A Rhythm Section, with oh my gosh, oh my god,
I remember this movie.
Blake Lively. It was, you remember that one? That was this year.
That was like the last of the theaters.
Yeah. It was going to potentially launch a new big, female-fronted action franchise, kind of like Bourne Identity-ish, and it just was totally mishandled and not a good movie at all. But Sean?
I mean, I'm just surprised with the Rhythm Section. I didn't see it, but it involves Sterling K. Brown, and whatever he's in is perfect and amazing, and Sterling K. Brown is the greatest person in the world. So now for my disappointment, I am going to go with also a Christmas release. I guess we're really big on the recency. And this is Soul. And Soul is fine. It's not bad. It's fine. But this was supposed to be the big Pixar. This was supposed to be like the big, heavy, inside out, amazing transcendence, big time Pixar. Now, it's not fair to compare something to Inside Out. And I understand that. I'm not going there. But this tried to be as deep as that without actually doing that. This film had a beautiful nail slightly on the wall. This film had a beautiful hammer. And then that hammer instead just whacked at the wall as much as possible without even managing to hit that nail. And it just ended up being a wall just full of plaster. And it just was just so upsetting to see something like that. That analogy is coming from, I watched Sam and her mom hanging up cabinets while I sat in the living room and watched movies. But Soul could have been this great movie, and some people love it, and some people are truly moved by it. And to those people, that's awesome. I'm so happy you are, but I just don't think the dots connected enough there.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I know that we have people in the chat that really enjoyed that movie. And again, it's a good movie. It's fine. But in terms of, I think, how they were talking, how it was being talked up, I was really expecting to be blown away, and I wasn't, unfortunately. I did watch, it's funny you bring up Inside Out, because that was on the other night, and I ended up watching it again, and I love Inside Out. It's one of my top Pixar movies. They just handle everything so well, and it makes the deficiencies of Soul that much more apparent. So, yeah. So that's that.
Yeah. Did we end on disappointments? Oh no, we have one more. Okay, good.
We have one more.
I was like, wow, that's.
I was just very disappointed about these.
All right, well, have a good 2020.
Yeah. We'll see you next year.
No.
So most anticipated of 2021. Sean, you and I, our first one is the same. Dune. Can't wait for it. Can't wait.
Oh. There's and this is the thing. I hope this doesn't get overhyped, but there's just so many boxes that are checked on this. Sci-fi, insurmountable sci-fi, like that has has been tried to get adapted and does not work that well. Director that can handle something this crazy, has that ability, and then a cast is just absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, just unbelievable. Like Dune has everything going for it. I'm just really hoping it works, and I think it can. I really don't see how it could fail. Famous last words, knock on wood.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm very excited for it. I want a decent, big budget sci-fi movie. We haven't had one of those in a while, at least not one that's coming to mind right now. And my top sci-fi movie of this year was Archive, which was not a wide release, and it was more VOD. But I just love it. It's such a great movie, and it reminds me of how much I miss a good sci-fi film. So I'm with you there. I also have Spiral Book of Saw in there because I'm very, very into the Saw movies. People always look at me crazy when I'm like, yeah, they're disgusting and they kill a lot of people and they chop people up and there's all these traps and stuff, but it has a good story. Because it does. It has a solid story that, arguably got stretched out too much in 7 or 8 movies. But I'm excited to see where they take it next. I'm not totally sold on it, but I'm anticipating it because I love the Saw movies. And then finally, Eternals, in terms of the Marvel movies coming out. I really, really, really want to see Eternals. It has some actors that I'm very excited about entering the MCU, in particular, Richard Madden, who's one of my favorite actors. I'm very excited about him in there. And I think it's going to open up a lot more for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we get that, I think, next November. Interestingly enough, I always check to make sure that we're up on the news when we're recording this. And it's a story that was posted yesterday, but apparently Disney made an announcement regarding 2022. And on their list of movies, there's an untitled Marvel project wedged in between Captain Marvel 2 and Black Panther 2. So that's rather interesting because I feel like they've been pretty well mapped out. But just throwing that in there since we're talking about Marvel a little bit.
So the last one that I have that's my most anticipated was one that I sort of was worried about on the last pod. And I talked to you about it where I worried because, Biden won the election. Is this one still going to go? And I still think it's going to be amazing because it consists about talking about the Dreamers and all those situations. But In the Heights, I've watched the trailer on YouTube when it came out. I watched it about 20 times. I think it was I did vote it the best movie of 2019. And the trailer is just wonderful. It truly is wonderful. And so I think that visually this looks stunning. I think it's doing a musical right. It's doing a service to a musical. It just looks beautifully made. It has Anthony Ramos? Anthony Ramos, someone who's close to Lin-Manuel Miranda as the lead. He's got the right amount of energy. This just looks perfect. This is the one I was devastated when this got moved. I knew because it seems like this can only be played in the summer, obviously. And I just really wish it went to Netflix or something so I could have watched it immediately and watched it a million times. I am so excited for this one. But just please, let's have those theaters open, wear your masks, and let's just do this thing.
We've talked about musicals in the past. I love musicals. They're always feel-good experiences, and seeing a musical in the theater is so much fun. And with that trailer, I was the same. I watched it over and over again and just kept singing, In the Heights. That's the only part I would sing. In the Heights. But I'm very excited for that movie. Very excited. There's a lot coming out next year that we are going to have to cover, and it is going to be stressful. So I will be quitting my job. No, I'm kidding. There's a lot going on. But Sean, that is our outline for tonight. As we end this year and we move towards January 1st is Friday, which is insane.
Oh, man.
So then we will have a wonderful episode. We'll be back next week. And we will just kick off the year with doing what we do best.
This sounds good, Joe. This year has been hell in a grand scheme of things.
Yes.
But, in terms of you bringing me onto the pod, it has been amazing. I think I got all like lovely and fuddy-duddy over before Christmas. But I'll do it one more time. Thank you for having me all these times. Thank you for continuing to having me regardless of the dumb shit I say. And I'm looking forward to another year with you.
Yeah, it's been fun. So I only hope that the next co-host can fill in, fill your.
It's a fun bit.
A little outdated. Overused.
No. Keep it going. It's just great. Like, watch me crumble here.
No, it's a lot of fun. I look forward to this every week, and I'm glad that we can continue to do it. And excited that you'll be, figuring out this awards thing for guidethemovies.com and hearing more about that, because you're so much more in that stuff than I am, and it's always fun to talk to you about it. So, whether that turns out to be a weekly, bi-weekly, whatever, I'm excited to see what comes of that. And also all of the guests. So I guess a big thank you to all of our guests that came on this year, because we have tried to, bring on a lot of our friends from the cinephile community, as well as new voices that maybe you're not as familiar with. Because that's one of the best parts of this whole thing, is being able to meet others that are into films and just as nerdy as we are. So Haley being one of them, you're a nerd. She's in the chat.
Haley, there we go. Haley's there. She's staying up with us right now, and we're just so happy to have her or whatever. I still think, her review of It's a Wonderful Life needed more jazz hands is a difficult one to settle with, but it's okay. It's okay.
Oh, well, you were wishy-washy on the prom. So, Sean, where can people where can people find you?
They can find me at Math Teacher Movies on Instagram. Please start following now, because I am going over my best of the year. I decided to do best line of the year, best shot of the year, best scene of the year, and then all of the performances and best picture of the year, because it's fun to work.
I'm with you. That's a lot of fun content. I'm on Guy at the Movies. We're doing the second year of the Golden Guy Awards. And so we're getting in the voting there. It's always interesting putting that stuff together, because, of course, I'm going from like my perspective, right, on these categories and who I think should be nominated. And a lot of times there's many of the individuals that are in the talk for awards, but also sometimes there's not, and I throw some other people in. But seeing some of the feedback is always interesting. People are like, what happened to blah 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 blah? I'm like, oh, they're not there. So you can check that out at Guide to Movies on Instagram, guidetomovies.com for all of your movie news and reviews, as well as Guide to Movies on YouTube, Guide to Movies 1 on Twitter, and of course this podcast, because we enjoy doing this every week. So just search for the Guide to Movies podcast with Joe and Sean. Anywhere that you get your podcast, you can listen. And then starting on Friday, I promise it's actually this Friday, starting on January 1st. I've been teasing this for 2 months now. But Never Coming Soon. It's a podcast where each episode discusses a different film that was in production and never quite made it to the big screen. The first episode is about Nicolas Cage's Superman Lives with Tim Burton in the director's chair. So very fascinating story. Putting the finishing touches on that, and you'll be able to listen to that in your hungoverness on Friday morning. And then one other thing to plug here is Sports Movie Trivia with the Chumps on Thursday, January 7th. So it's going to be all sports movies, easy, hard, kind of a mix of everything, but it'll be a lot of fun to kind of dive into those, because there's a lot of great ones. So, Sean, we have done a PSA every week since the pandemic has started, and we are still in the midst of it. We are dealing with, cases kind of skyrocketing here and there. I know that there's some positives on the horizon in terms of people getting vaccinated, but also I see, for instance, LA, which has very strict lockdown orders, is seeing a decrease in cases, which is great. I think Philadelphia just reported that today. So hopefully things are getting a little better in some areas, but it's still a big challenge. But what can people do to do their part?
I'm going to say something different this time, because there is something very simple, but there's something even easier. It's New Year's Eve. Stay inside. stay home. There's nothing good out there. There's nothing good any New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve sucks. Okay, so stay inside and enjoy yourself. All right, just stay inside. Like, get a case of beer, get drunk, and stay inside. Now, if you are going to go out, don't. First of all, don't. First of all, don't. First of all, don't. But if you are going to go out, first of all, don't. First of all, don't. First of all, don't. But if you are going to go out, wear your damn mask.
Yes, please do. Please do. Yeah, there's nothing more to be said there. We're still in the middle of this. This is episode 28, and we're still dealing with this. So that's 28 weeks, people. And that's not even the entire pandemic, right? So, frustrating. But on that note, Happy New Year, Sean.
Buddy, have a great New Year. Enjoy yourself. I'll be seeing you in 2021. I won't do the see you next year joke, but I'll
See
say
you next year.
see you next year. See you in 2021, or probably right after this when we, talk for like 5 hours while we're trying to, watch different movies and stuff like that.
Makes sense. Talk to you then.
Yeah. Talk to you then.